No, a goldfish does not have a 3-second memory. No, the North Star is not the brightest star. No, coal doesn't turn into diamonds. Surprised? There are literally hundreds of more pieces of information where that came from in my book, Facts That Aren't True. Click the link in the description to learn more.
Conclude that DNA did form naturally on its own when it's not based on observation.
Well, we have found, to say that DNA is unlike any molecule we've ever observed, therefore it must be designed or whatever, so DNA is unique, but it is literally just a molecule. It actually behaves exactly like all molecules do. It undergoes chemical reactions and chemical transformations, and it has chemical properties. It's unique, but I wouldn't say that just because it's unique means it therefore must have some sort of like divine origins or something like that. But the other thing is we do find DNA in nature. We have found all of the nucleotides just in nature, separate from life.
It's not just that it's unique, it's that the system by which it's built, it's literally a factory. And if you don't have those factory components to assemble the molecule, you do not have DNA. It doesn't join on its own.
Yes, well, we don't. I'm not sure about DNA, but RNA can actually do that. But
RNA is assembled in very much a similar way as DNA. It still takes a factory to assemble the molecule of RNA and DNA.
Today it does. Yeah, but the way it would have started out would have been different. And there's really compelling research.
That's not a scientific claim.
Yes, it is.
That's an assumption.
What do you think a hypothesis is?
A hypothesis is an idea. It's an idea of what might happen. Science comes from observation.
And so
you
the idea,
right?
And so the idea, there's nothing unscientific about the claim that DNA or RNA would have worked together or functioned slightly differently in the past. For example, there's a lot of really cool ongoing research about what's called like metabolism first. So we think that DNA has the genes that control for metabolism, but metabolism is the chemical process that can actually build things and break things down. So a metabolic pathway forming the first nucleotide molecules that in which that system became like, I don't know what you want to call it, not exactly autocatalytic, but where that system would be perpetual, is again an area of ongoing research, and there's nothing unscientific about that.
I would say it's unscientific to believe that it did happen. You can have the idea and you can have scientific reasoning
behind. How is it unscientific?
Because science is based on observation.
Every single observation you make is of events that occurred in the past.
Okay.
So is it possible to scientifically study the past?
Sure. Yeah, I'm a geologist. That's my profession. So I get that. Okay. But every observation that we have for DNA shows that it is assembled by a factory of components. So for you to say that, well, maybe it wasn't at some other point, that claim is not a scientific one.
Yes, because it is. Because it's... How is it not scientific? Because we can't travel? Because we can't time travel?
Because there's no observation that would lead me to believe that DNA forms any other way. You can have conjecture, but conjecture isn't scientific.
So
would you agree with that claim? Conjecture is not scientific?
No, because that's what a hypothesis is. So if we do experiments where we find that we can create like DNA, like a protocellular system with DNA or RNA self-replicating and like perpetuating itself or whatever, that wouldn't count as scientific evidence in support of that idea?
That would, but you haven't found that.
There, are you sure? Have you read any origin of life research?
Yeah, sure. I've looked at the Urey Miller experiments and all that.
That's not origin of
That's
life research. I'm talking about like studies in amyloids, in DNA and RNA autocatalysis and things like that. There's huge numbers or huge amounts of literature, like really sophisticated scientific literature on this stuff.
yeah, there's experiments of finding different components of DNA, but the assemblance of it is has never been shown. And that's a thing. If you take a DNA molecule, it will degrade. It doesn't form like when we have minerals. You can put components and you have precipitates that form minerals. It's very simple. But if you take the components of DNA, it does not assemble on its own. It has to be built.
I don't
And
think that
that's the
that's
thing.
true at all.
That's why research points for an RNA world hypothesis and not a DNA world hypothesis, because RNA can act both as a catalyst and also as a storage mechanism for information.
RNA is built in very much the same way as DNA. Again, that does
No.
not assemble
No.
like a mineral or anything. You still have to have a factory that puts it together.
The chemistry of RNA, the chemistry of DNA are markedly different, to a point that RNA can exist as a catalyst of reactions and also as a storage of information.
It is still built by a series of biomechanical machinery.
No, we know that RNA is pretty much able of replicating.
What do you mean pretty much? That sounds like your conjecture again.
There is evidence to show within archaea bacteria that is a possibility, and that does happen because we know and we observe this on regulation mechanisms of RNA. Please do not talk
Again,
over
that's
me.
conjecture.
I say please do not talk over me, because sometimes the answers from biologists are a little bit more in depth than you are hoping for. RNA and the RNA world hypothesis are the ones that are most supported by evidence, because we have observed many times that RNA can exist both as a catalyst and as a storage of information. And we have observed mechanisms in archaea bacteria, which are the bacteria that have the oldest living forms of replication, that those molecules of RNA are pretty much able to self-replicate if needed and in extreme conditions.
So are you saying that the RNA molecule is not built by biomechanical machinery?
No, you can pretty much find all the reactions needed to have the ribonucleic acids within either solvents.
I understand there's reactions, but those reactions
and they will naturally coalesce together. That's the basic function. Yes.
That has never been observed.
Pretty much they will naturally coalesce together, and we have observed this quite a few times.
You keep qualifying it with that word "pretty much," so that tells me that even you would know that has not been observed.
I am sorry that I don't have English as my first language, so I don't use your colloquialisms. When I say pretty much, yes, we have observed this.
So, for example, spontaneous formation of base pairing of plausible prebiotic nucleotides in water. This is a scientific paper from Nature.
Okay, what does that say?
I'd have to read the entire. Here, let me. Okay. I will copy and paste the abstract into ChatGPT and ask it to summarize, because it's a lot of words.
Sure. Okay.
Oh shoot! And then I forgot.
You think that all of the research in abiogenesis stopped with the Miller-Urey experiment? It didn't.
I'm sorry. Say that again.
Do you think that all of the research into abiogenesis stopped with the Miller-Urey experiments? It didn't. You have 70 more years of research after that.
Well, sure.
The fact that you mentioned research that was done roughly 80
Well, it's
years ago,
probably
and you don't
probably the
mention
most
more actual
famous. That's why I
stuff.
mention it. But sure, there are other experiments that have been done, and they show components. But I'm not arguing of components. I'm arguing of
What's
assembly.
so? Let me have a grasp on what on your understanding of this. How many types of RNA exist?
Oh, I don't know. I'm a geologist, not a biologist.
So how do you claim to be knowledgeable on this when you don't know how many types of
Well,
RNA
if you're
exist?
asking me for infinite knowledge, no, I'm not going to know
I'm
everything. I
not
know
asking
some
for
things.
infinite knowledge. I'm asking for
Right. I,
basic genetics and genomics kind of knowledge.
sure. I have basic knowledge of how DNA and RNA form.
How many types do exist? What are their functions?
Yeah, I don't know.
So you don't have knowledge from the last 30 to 40
I
years of genetics and
Well,
genomics,
here's the
and
thing.
you
The
claim to
knowledge
be
that
able
I
to
am
do that?
presenting, sure. The knowledge that I am presenting is the knowledge.
That is completely outdated, dude.